Hey guys, I am so glad to be back with another masterclass. I know it's been a while, but I wanted you guys to digest and be able to understand the 5 other classes that I have previously taught in the Success Collective. So, we've done a lot of talking about building a marketing plan, how to build a marketing strategy. And I have to say, I've been hesitant to teach this simply because if you're not a marketer, it's very hard for you to do everything in your business. Okay, you can't be the marketer and the coach and the service provider and the mug maker and the bracelet do, like, you can't do everything, right? So I'm going to walk you guys through what it takes to build a marketing plan as a solopreneur, as somebody who's going to do it by themselves with a whole bunch of things on their plate. Okay, so this is not going to be a full-blown marketing strategy like you would see in corporate America, or like people who have a team of 5 do it. This is specifically for people who are doing it by themselves or with a part-time assistant or something like that. Okay. So the next thing, I don't know what's going on my screen, but so the next thing that you need to know is that a good marketer knows where to find her audience, what to say, and when to say it. Okay. Your marketing strategy is not going to work if you do not know, first and foremost, who your audience is exactly and what problem it is that you're going to solve for them. Okay. I am a marketing expert. I worked in corporate America doing marketing for 6 years. I studied it in college. I do it every single day in my life. My audience are people who need to figure out how to grow their businesses and market their brands. That's who I'm talking to. The problem that I solve for them is that I know how to provide them with the products, services, and resources to be able to allow them to grow their businesses on a budget and with very little knowledge. Most people who are my clients and my customers aren't marketers by trade. They're regular, everyday entrepreneurs who started a business and now don't know what to do next. So you need to become very, very clear on who your audience is, because you won't be able to create the right marketing strategy without knowing that up front. So if you haven't sat down and really mapped out your audience story, then it's something that you definitely want to do in the Make Yourself Marketable book. It is, I believe, in like the first 20 pages, there's an exercise for you to go over your target market. So definitely go ahead and do that before you jump into building a marketing strategy. Because if you don't know where your audience is, what you're going to say to them, and when you should say it, your strategy is going to fail. I'll give you an example. I know that my clients are, like I said, solopreneurs. They work for themselves, and a lot of them still have full-time jobs and work 9 to 5, right? So most of my marketing and most of my posting I do in the morning, during lunchtime, or after work. Why? Because if I don't know when to say something, right, when to post something, my audience is not going to see it. It's going to get lost in the shuffle of their day when they're at work. So I want to make sure that, for example, for my group coaching, I'm hosting the calls after 8 and 9 o'clock. Why? They have kids they're putting to bed. They're coming home from work. They have to make dinner. They have husbands. There's a whole, psychological strategy around building a marketing plan. It's not just let me throw up a social media post or let me put up a blog. You really need to do it in a way that fits into your audience lifestyle. And if you don't know your audience story, then you probably don't know their lifestyle, and you probably won't know what to say or when to say it because you're absolutely clueless. So again, stop this video and go do the target market exercise in my Make Yourself Marketable book if you haven't done so yet, because if not, all of this is going to be in vain. Okay? All right. So you know who your target market is, you know where to find her, you know what to say to her, you know when to say it, right? Next is understanding the marketing strategy overview. So a marketing strategy is a cycle of these components. It's awareness, engagement, sales, and retention, going over and over and over again in a cycle. So you make somebody aware of your product, your service, your brand, or your business. You engage them. You build that trust. You build that credibility with them. Eventually, you sell to them. And then your job is to retain them, either keeping them happy in whatever program, product, service, offering that you have, or getting them to buy something else. Okay? The way that you build awareness is through search engine optimization, aka SEO. You get discovered on social media, and then you go the traditional route of handing out flyers, giving out business cards, word of mouth referrals from your already existing clients, going to events and hosting your own events, right? Digital marketing has got people very confused, right? They got it messed up, and they think that they're just going to sit on Instagram and post all day, or they're going to sit on Facebook and buy ads, and that their business is going to grow and flourish and be great. While that may work for some people, 99.9% of businesses do not pop off simply because of social media. There are other things that you need to put in place. So you want to make sure that, one, you can be found on Google, and that your website and your content is search engine optimized. Search engine optimization is not a game. So this is not something that you're going to try to DIY. If you're really serious about search engine optimization, especially if you're a brick and mortar business, you need to hire a professional, point blank, period. I'm not even here to try to play with y'all. Search engine optimization is a very intricate process. It changes every single month, depending on how Google feels and what the algorithm is like. So you definitely want to get an expert for that. Social media. Yes, again, social media is great. It's super helpful in getting found, but it's not the end all be all, because not all of your customers are going to be on social media, and they are definitely going to miss posts, right? So if I go into a store and I leave flyers, or if I host an event and I'm promoting my brand, that's going to be a very different experience than me sitting at home praying that somebody's going to stumble across my Instagram post via hashtag, right? Or it's going to be very different from me sitting at home, putting out Facebook ads and hoping that the people that are getting served the ads are my actual audience who are going to end up buying from me. So it's important not to leave out the traditional marketing, because the traditional marketing has built businesses for hundreds of years, right? Flyers, word of mouth, going to events, handing out your business card, all those things that seem annoying and seem like they take up a lot of time are also important, and you cannot leave them out when you're in the stage of building awareness in your business. If you're brand new, you need to get out there and hustle, and you need to get out there and put your feet to the pavement. The next thing is engagement. So how are you going to engage people after they become aware, right? You do that through social media, email, and content. So after they know that you exist, after they found you, after they follow you, after they go to your website and do all that stuff, that's when you want to continue to build the relationship with them via social media, email, and content. Content could be blog posts, content could be videos, content could be a podcast, it could be master classes, it could be anything that you use to share information, any channel that you use to share information, phone, anything like that. Sales. Sales are also made through the very same channels that you engage people on. So if your Instagram is your main form of engaging with your audience, it's probably going to be the main way that you're going to make sales. Same thing with email. If people are very engaged with your emails, they open up your newsletter, they open up your sales emails, a lot of your sales, a lot of your conversions are going to then come from email. So it's very important to take the engagement part seriously, because if you don't engage properly, you won't sell properly. And that's that. And then, of course, retention. Retention, just like engagement and sales, is going to take place on those very same channels. So you're going to want to send out, follow-up emails to your already existing clients to let them know about products. You're going to want to, that's when, for example, you go to the doctor and they send you that email to remind you about your appointment, right? There are lots of tactics that marketers use to retain customers and keep them coming back. Okay. So you always, always, always want to plan out your strategy with these 4 areas. You want to figure out, how am I going to build awareness? How am I going to engage people once they are aware that I exist? How am I going to sell to them? And how am I going to retain them? Those are the 4 questions that you constantly want to answer every single day in your business, every single month as you build marketing plans and create content, and every single quarter when you're going over sales. Okay. If you're not selling, if you feel like your marketing is whack, it's probably because you're not doing the full strategy and you're just focusing on one area or another. So you're sitting on Instagram, engaging and killing it, but you're not building awareness. So your business isn't growing because you're still marketing to the same 500 people that you've been marketing to for the last 3 years. You feel me? So it's very important not to miss any part of the marketing overview, because if you do, there are going to be holes in your business, right? If you don't build awareness, you won't have people to engage, sell, or retain. If you only engage, then you're not going to increase your sales or have anybody to retain because you're not bringing new people into your funnel. If you only focus on selling, you're probably not, because people don't trust you and you probably don't have anybody to sell to in the first place. And you can't retain anybody who doesn't buy from you. You feel me? So you have to look at this as a 4-part strategy and not just one or the other. Many entrepreneurs only focus on one or the other, and then they wonder why they do not make sales. So if you are serious about building a marketing strategy, you need to really sit down and think about how you're doing each of these things in your business. Okay? Lovely. Then you also need to understand that your brand operates in seasons. You cannot do everything simultaneously, right? You cannot build awareness and engage and sell and retain all at the same time, all at once, if you've just launched your brand. I've been in business for 7 years now. 7 years in September, actually. So it's easy for me to do all of these things. And yes, I can, launch a product and build engagement and capture new leads all in the same day, because I've already built out that system over the last 7 years, right? I've already built the content. I've already written the email funnel. I've already, planned my social media. I've taken the steps to make all of that seamless for me. But when you're just starting your brand, or you're just building out your business, or you're pivoting in your business, for example, if you were selling hair and now you're doing massages, then you are basically starting over. So it's important for you as a newbie business owner to understand that your business at this point in time is going to operate in seasons, and you cannot do everything simultaneously. So what are the seasons in your business? There is a brand building season where you're creating trust with your audience and where you're really building that relationship and making them addicted to your content. One thing that made me very, very successful is that people kept coming back over and over and over again to my blog every single week. Before I ever launched a product, before I ever launched a service, before I even thought about monetizing my website, I built that sense of love and trust with my audience. And had I not built that obsession, if you will, and they're not really obsessed, but had I not built that, constant need to come back to my site and see what's the new post that I did, or what new webinar am I doing? And if I didn't build that excitement and that rapport with them, when I did finally write my book and launch it, it would have been crickets. Nobody would have bought because it would have been too soon in the process. So it's important for you to understand that you're going to have to grind it out for the free for a good chunk of time before you go out here and just launch products and services. Okay? You need to build credibility, you need to build trust, and you need to get your audience to know, like, and trust you. Right? Think about the last thing that you've purchased from someone or from somewhere, right? If you walked into a store, you were in the store for a while, you probably browsed the aisles, you read the label, you thought about the price point, you did a lot of different things before you finally made that final purchase, right? And there were things in that store that were able to build trust. So if you were, for example, in a franchise, then you were probably already familiar with the brand, right? Nobody pulls up to McDonald's and is like, oh my gosh, like, what's in a Big Mac? Like, what should I, what do you guys sell? Because it's such a big popular brand. So the name recognition is already there. But if you're a new brand or a smaller brand, you have to put in the work to build your actual brand name recognition and trust with your audience. So that way, when it does come time to sell and it comes time for them to buy, they're ready to make that transaction. The other season that you'll be in your business is an actual business building season. So when you build your brand, you build your reputation. When you build your business, you're building sales. So in the business building phase, That's when you're launching products, you're making sales, you're running promotions, you're doing all of the things necessary to get the coins in your pocket, right? So when you get to the business building phase, your brand building activities might slow down, right? You can't be writing 17 blog posts, running 1 million sales, delivering a product or service, and doing everything all at once. It's going to take time. So when you are focusing on revenue generation, then it's okay to slow down on the brand building because your focus is somewhere else in your business. But you cannot dive into a season of business building if you have not been in a season of brand building. Okay. It's just the same thing like gardening. You cannot expect to reap something that you haven't sowed, right? You cannot expect to pick fruit which seeds you haven't planted. If you haven't planted seeds and you think that you're going to show up 3 months later and just start picking all this fruit, you got it fucked up. Okay. So it's important for you to understand that brand building, working hard for free, putting processes in place is going to take time. For some people, it takes years. Some businesses, it takes them 3 to 5 years to really pop off, right? While yes, they're making sales and things like that, they haven't really reached the pinnacle of success that they would like to reach. So you need to understand that while you build your brand, there are going to be months and weeks that you're not making money, but you have to continue to give up in the middle of brand building. You're definitely never going to be able to build a business. Okay. So that's first and foremost. The next thing that you need to focus on are cycles. So there are going to be different cycles in your business depending on the season that you're in, right? So if you're in a season of brand building, you're going to probably be focusing a lot on your website and your channels, right? You're going to be creating a lot of content. You're going to be making sure that your website converts. You're going to have an opt-in to capture leads, that freebie that we always talk about. You're going to basically be preparing your house, for lack of better terms. So when you have guests come over, right, you are preparing for them. You're taking out the food, you've cleaned, you've, wipe down the counters, you maybe put an air freshener out. Like, you do things to prepare for people to come over to your house. It's the same thing with your brand. There are things that you need to do to prepare to actually have customers. Do you have an e-commerce? Plugin setup? Do you have a shop you're going to charge in sales tax in your particular state or city? Do you have an LLC? Did you put all of the mechanisms together so that once your website is up, once your doors are open, that people can actually buy? So the first cycle of focus is always going to be on the foundation, usually the website or your actual store or whatever it is that you need to actually make sales and start to build that trust and that relationship with your customers. The next thing is list building and social. You're going to be very, very heavy around list building. So you're going to be doing webinars. You're going to be doing a lot of events. You're going to be building out funnels. You're going to be focusing on building relationships and making sales. You're going to be posting on social media. You're going to be doing a lot of things that are very visible to your audience so that you can now start to get people into your funnels and start to sell to them. So when you're in a season of brand building and when you're in a season of, building the foundation, for example, like I said, your website or your actual brick and mortar store, a lot of what you're doing is behind, on the weekends. People don't see all more intentional, right? So Versus before, when you're in a season of brand building, you're putting out a lot of free social media content, you're putting out YouTube videos, you're writing blogs, but you're writing blogs and creating content for social because you just want people to know what you know, right? You want people to know that you're credible. You want people to see that you're stylish. You want people to see that you know how to help them lose weight or whatever your goal is for your audience. So you're basically just building out your credibility with your content at first. But once you move into the revenue phase, now you're very intentional about, okay, I'm going to post this specific post because I want to drive people back to my landing page to make sales, right? So for me, I launched my Squad Goals social media challenge probably about once a quarter. So what do? About a month before I'm actually going to launch, I start to do a lot of talking about social media growth, how to use Instagram for business. I start sharing a lot of my old blog posts that I've already written about social media in addition to writing new ones. I might do a couple of Instagram lives. I'll start to get people excited and start the conversation, all with the goal of eventually driving them to my landing page to buy. Right. So whether, I'm selling the challenge or whether I'm selling my book, I'm always very intentional as to what I'm posting to my blog and social media during the business building phase, because it all should be directly tied to a sale. Versus, like I said, in the brand building phase, when you're just starting out and you just want to create that credibility and that trust, you're just putting content out there for the free to build those relationships and to get people to love you, to follow you, and to stay connected. Okay, hope that makes sense. So after you have those two things down, right? After you focus on your website and you have it together, after you've built your list, you've built your social media following, you've got all that together, then is when you go into a season of visibility. Now is when you hire the publicist. Now is when you worry about doing guest posts. Now is when you worry about collaborations because you have your shit in order, right? You cannot have, a business without having customers and credibility already built in, right? You cannot be on Oprah with your lovely business if you've never made any sales, right? You're never going to be in anybody's magazine. Nobody's ever going to want to partner with you. You're never going to speak on anybody's conference and get paid for it if you have not done the work first, right? So if you're sitting there like, why does nobody book me for events? Girl, you haven't sold $100 worth of product, but you want to be the keynote speaker at the Black Enterprise Conference. Like, come on. Like, let's be, a little bit more realistic. So before you start focusing on your visibility, on press, on getting a publicist, on speaking engagements, on partnering with other bloggers and other people in your area, you need to make sure that you have the first two things in check, which is your foundation, your website, that trust, and then actual sales. Yes. So definitely do not move into the visibility phase if you have not done the first two things, okay? Because what's going to happen is you're going to get burnt out and you're going to get very discouraged by all the no's, and you're going to sit there wondering why people are telling you no, and it's because you didn't do the work to get the yes, okay? I always encourage you to do these for as long as it takes. If you put up a website today and you have not seen any consistency in your traffic, for example, like your traffic just doesn't go up month after month, nobody's signing up for your list, you just feel like you're posting out there and nothing's happening, you need to switch it up, right? That doesn't mean, hey, I posted in January and then in February I'm going to start selling. No. You need to master one thing at a time. So you know that you're ready to move into another focus when you've mastered the previous one, right? So I don't blog 3 times a week like I did 6 years ago because I've already mastered that, right? People are already coming to my site. I know that on average, 10,000 to 15,000 people are going to come to my site every month, regardless of whether I put out a new blog post or not. If I put out a new blog post, that's great. More people are going to come and stuff, but I've already built out my site that it can keep going even if I don't write something new or even if I don't create any new content. Okay. So if you haven't built up your blog or your website or your store to a place where month to month that your traffic is going to increase a little bit, by 5% or by 10%, and that you're going to be able to retain the people who came to your site before, then you need to stay in that area of focus. Okay. You need to check to see, okay, maybe I'm not blogging about the right things. Maybe I'm not trying to solve the right problem for my audience. Maybe my audience is all the way off. Maybe I thought I was talking to moms, but I'm really talking to teenage girls. Or maybe I thought that, I was going to focus on helping entrepreneurial women, but really what you're helping is women who are in their 9 to 5, right? So when you don't see your brand actually being built, when you don't see it progressing, when you don't see your social media growing, when you don't see your traffic growing, when you don't see any engagement or anything like that, then that means it's time to switch up that strategy. Maybe you don't need to blog. Perhaps it's going on YouTube. Maybe you don't, focus so much on Facebook. Maybe it's on Instagram. Maybe, your website is poorly designed and you need to go through a redesign. There are lots of things that might point to why you aren't growing in your business, but it's your job to track your metrics properly so that you know what area it is that you need to work on. Okay. So focus on one area at a time, because if not, you're going to, get to a place where you're super burnt out because you feel like nothing is working, when really it was just because you didn't build in a very strategic order. Okay. Okay. So what does this actually look like in real life, right? So if you're supposed to first focus on your website and your brand building, and then you're supposed to focus on your list building and your social media, and then you're supposed to focus on your visibility, what does that look like? When I do my strategies for my clients, I like to give them a month to focus on each. And it's like a month of real life work. It's not a month of, oh, well, I love my kids so much, so I'm only going to work 1 hour a night. And, oh, well, it's summer, so, I'm going to go off and like go on vacation, and I'm only going to work 10 hours in my business this week. It's like, no, you're going to work on your business in the same way that you work your 9 to 5, right? And the reason that that's so is because you cannot move quickly if you do not put in the work, right? You can never expect to get to my level, someone who does this full time, more than 40 hours a week, every single week, by doing it for 5 hours a week, every other week. You feel me? Like, it's not going to happen. So when I build out my marketing strategies, I build it for people who are going to put in the work so that they can accomplish each cycle within 1 month. That may not be the case for you. So you need to be very, very realistic. If you know that you get home from work at 9 o'clock at night, you want to go to the gym, you want to cook a gourmet dinner, and by 11:30, you're ready to go to sleep, I'm not sure when you think you're going to work on your business. So if you only work on your business Saturdays and Sundays for about 2 hours, and then guess what? You might be on the cycle of brand building and in the season of brand building for 6 months. That just might be the case, right? So you need to be very realistic around the time that you're putting into your business, and very realistic about what you're going to get out of it if you think you're going to be successful. Building out a marketing plan, like I said, is simply just taking people through the cycle of awareness, engagement, sales, and retention. That's it. People overcomplicate it. They think that it's social media posting and they think that it's video, but really it's about how are you making people aware that you exist, trusting you now that they know that you exist, actually buy from you and buy from you again. How are you doing those things? Okay. So think about that very, very clearly. How do you currently do it now? How much time does it actually take? And be realistic about how much time is going to take for you to focus on building your brand in the cycles of focus that are on the screen right now. Do not think because it took you 17 months to get your domain that you're going to be able to put up a full banging website in 30 days. Like, you're not. It took you 17 years to write the ebook, but you think that you're going to get the website up in 7 days. And you're not. So be realistic. Think about the trends in your life, right? Think about the patterns that you've already created in your life. Think about the time that you can actually allot to doing this, and then build out your strategy based on those things. Okay. So I'm going to show you an example of how I do it for my clients who put in the work, as in more than 15, 20 hours a week, okay, on their business, how I map it out. For you, it may be different. So don't look at this plan and be like, oh shit, the world's going to fall apart. No. You are going to adjust the plan based on what's going to work for you, your business, your time commitment, your energy, and your real nigginess, right? Because a lot of people think, okay, I'm going to build a business, but they're really doing it for play, right? So if you know, I'm not really that serious about my business, it's like, yeah, I kind of love it, but I'm still trying to kill it in my 9 to 5. Totally fine. Totally fine. Adapts for that, right? If you know that you're still trying to kill it in your 9 to 5, you want to, be there for your kids. You want to, go on dates with your boyfriend on the weekends, and you want to do all of these other things, that's fine. Then you need to understand that, it might take you 10 months to do what it might take somebody 1 month to do. Okay. So don't compare your journey to somebody else's journey, but be very, very realistic, because if you don't set the proper expectations, again, that's when you end up sad, discouraged, feeling like you aren't making any progress, like the world is falling apart, like you just don't understand why, your business isn't working. But the reality is you didn't set the right expectations. So if you tell yourself, okay, this is going to take me 6 months to do, and you give yourself that time, then when you're in month 3 and you aren't seeing results, that you gave yourself 6 to get it accomplished. Okay. So please, 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 if you got nothing else, is be realistic about what you can do and how you're going to move in business. Because if you think that your business is going to pop off in 30 days, it's not. People are lying out here on the internet. You cannot build a business in 30 days. You cannot transform your brand in 90 days. It's an ongoing, everyday thing. You can transform the way that you think, but you cannot transform how your whole entire business operates in 5 minutes. You can't. Okay. So let's get to the real life strategies. So if we go back to the cycles of focus, right? You're supposed to focus on content creation and planning for conversions, right? With your website, with your store, building your brand, right? Then you're focused on building your list, social media, which is starting to build your business. And then once you've built your brand and built your business, then you focus on visibility and getting new people into your funnels, new people on your social media pages, new people into your door, right? But if you don't have a brand and a business to bring new people into, it's going to be pointless, right? So this is what it would look like for somebody who is just starting out or has a brand and it hasn't been popping, and they can dedicate more than 20 hours a week to their brand. So the first thing in the first month, you're going to focus on your website. So you have a brand new, brand or business idea. You're going to focus on building out your website. You're going to have a pop-in landing page. You're going to have an about page that talks about your credibility, why you're even credible to do this for somebody. You're going to have some sort of content. Again, that might be videos, it might be blog posts, it might be a podcast, something that is going to let people know how you think and how you can help them, right? The next thing that you're going to do is you're going to start to build out your opt-in. So your opt-in is the freebie that you give away. It could be a free webinar, a free PDF, a free class, whatever it is, but just some free form of content and value that you are going to give people in exchange for their email address. Okay, so that's what it means by capturing leads with an opt-in. It's simply having a form on your website that people can sign up for your email list, but in addition to just signing up for your email list, you're going to reward them with this free, valuable piece of content or knowledge that they cannot find anywhere else on their website. Okay, great. Next thing is you want to increase traffic and page views. So while you're building out the actual visuals of your site, you also need to understand how you are going to be creating value with your website, right? A brand is not a pretty logo and a color palette, right? There are plenty of women who are cute with no substance, and you don't want that to be the case for your brand. Right? You don't want it to be real pretty, pink and gold, and have sparkles and all this other fuckery. But at the end of the day, it has no substance and no value to people. And if your website evaporated from the internet tomorrow, nobody would notice or care, right? So you want to think about, how am I adding value to my audience every single day? How am I making life easier for them? How am I helping them do something that they don't know how to do or that they don't want to do for themselves? Okay? So you want to start increasing traffic and page views. What does that mean? That means going hard in the area of awareness, right? That means going hard with, figuring out your search engine optimization, figuring out social media, getting, out into the streets and networking. But the only way that you're going to increase traffic and page views is if you increase the amount of people who know that you exist. So you need to sit down and create some ideas around how can I increase awareness of my business on the internet and off of the internet. Okay. So my blog views increase, or more people, start to follow me online when I do a speaking engagement, right? So when I go, and I did this for a long time, for like 4 years, I spoke for free. So when I go sit on a panel for the free ski, okay, when I go do a podcast interview with my friend for the free ski, when I go to, just a regular young professionals networking event, okay, and I spend that $25 to go pay for overpriced drinks and talk to people all day long, I know that it's going to directly result in somebody new who I've never encountered before coming to my site. So if you aren't putting yourself out there, and if you aren't hustling to build awareness in your business, you will never increase traffic and page views. Okay. That's like saying, I want people to visit me, but I live on a deserted island that isn't on a map. How, Sway? Like, how do you want people to show up where you are if it's not available on a map, nobody knows it exists, and the only method of transportation is a boat or a helicopter or a plane? And most people out here are in cars. It's not going to happen, right? So you have to be very, very diligent while you're in the season of awareness, and understanding that you're going to have to hustle and do things that feel uncomfortable for the sake of actually building your brand. Okay? Like I said, for me, I did a lot of free speaking engagements. I was on everybody's webinar. I was on everybody's panel. I did everybody's podcast. I did every single possible free opportunity to build that awareness. Okay? What is the difference between awareness and visibility? Because I know you're probably like, well, Emily, I thought you said don't worry about getting press or doing speaking engagements until afterwards. Paid, right? I was not trying to be in Essence Magazine 2 weeks after I launched my brand, right? I was not trying to get paid to be on anybody's panel 2 minutes after I put up my speaking page, right? So when you're building awareness for your brand or your business, it's things that a lot of times you do for free, right? Things that you participate in for free that take up time and your money, right? So I would like literally go speak in DC and pay for my own bus, find somewhere to stay, speak on the panel, and then go back home on the bus for 4 hours to New York, right? Like, have you done these things? Are you willing to do these things? Because if you're not, it's going to be hard. It's going to really, really be hard to build your brand. And I'm being honest with you because I think people think that, I built my business overnight, or that it was like this magical leprechaun that came on my doorstep and gave me like all this marketing knowledge. But really, you aren't building your business because you don't know how to do marketing. You aren't building your business because you aren't hustling, right? You aren't doing the things necessary to even get people to know about your brand, let alone building out a marketing strategy. A marketing strategy is way easier to figure out than hustle, right? A marketing strategy is very easy to go pay somebody $500 to do. What you can't pay somebody $500 to do is be you and make those connections. So in the first month, this is where you're going to every single possible networking event in your area. You're going to it. You're having coffee with every single possible potential client or customer so that you can figure out how to build out your landing pages for whatever service you want to build. You are blogging your ass off because you know that every new blog post or every new YouTube video that you publish is new eyes on your site, right? You are building out your email list, and you're getting people on your list with that opt-in. So that way, when you're ready to sell, you have a list of people that you can send an email to and be ready to launch your product or service, right? And then you also want to make sure that your website is just built out to actually convert. Like I said, if your website is poorly designed, if you built it on, no shade, but if you built it on like Wix or Squarespace, or, you bought a WordPress template, and there was never any strategy behind why you were placing things certain places or why you were doing certain things, or you didn't give any thought to copy, it's going to be really hard for you to make those conversions. So I'll give you an example. If I say that my site is for, mompreneurs, and the copy on my website is like, I don't know, okay, I'll give you an example. So if I'm going for mompreneurs, right, and Mother's Day just passed. So if I'm focused on mompreneurs and the copy on my website is like, join me on a webinar on Sunday, May 14th, and it's Mother's Day, people are going to be like, girl, are you on crack cocaine? You know, I'm a mom. You know, I'm out here with my family. Like, the last thing I'm going to do is be on a webinar at 12 o'clock on a Sunday with you, especially when it's Mother's Day, right? That we make little mistakes like this because we don't really think about how we're saying things and putting things on our website, right? If we know that we are a holistic health coach and we want to help, busy, overworked entrepreneurs feel calm and relaxed, and they come to our website and it's lime green and orange, and you giving them a seizure with your color palette, again, you weren't intentional about the way that you built out your site. So that's why it's important to consult with a professional graphic designer. That way you can make sure that your website looks how you want it to look and says what you want it to say in a way that's going to resonate with your audience. Okay. So for example, my website, y'all know I keep it true. I curse. I don't give any fucks. So I cannot really expect for, Staples to call me to, coach their executive team when I know that I'm ratchet, I curse people out, and my website is lime green, gold, and black, and it's all about fashion, right? It's not going to work. So it's very, very important that the people that you're trying to reach are going to be able to connect and resonate with the brand that you're portraying visually and vocally, right, with copy on your site. So you can't be like, get snatched for summer and expect a 62-year-old woman to join because she doesn't even know what snatched means, right? Okay. So I think I beat a dead horse. You guys are clear. So when you're focusing on that first month or that first stage, step one is making sure that you have an audience and you build awareness and that your website is lit. And these are some of the priorities that you should be focusing on during that time. The next month or during the next stage is, like I said, list building and social media. So this is when you're going back to all of your blog posts, your most popular blog posts, and you're creating lead magnets. So if you did a blog post, top 5 tips on how to maximize wash day, if you're a natural hair blogger, then you need to give them a PDF with 5 more tips that weren't included in the original post. Or if you did a post on, how to invest in the stock market, then maybe you have a free webinar that you promote at the end of that specific blog post talking about, I don't know, the top stocks to invest in 2017, in 2017. Right? So it's giving them a little bit of extra value that wasn't already included in that original post that you promote in that specific piece of content. Okay. So that's, for example, when I do a YouTube video, a lead magnet is I may do, the notes from that YouTube video and say, hey, if you want to, get these tips, if you want to download a PDF, click the link below to download, the top 10 tips I talked about in this video. That's a lead magnet, right? They sat there and watched it, but maybe they want to, just have the notes for themselves. Then I'm going to send them to a landing page where I can capture their email and give them a PDF, right? So the difference between a lead magnet and an opt-in is something that gets people on your list very generally. It's just a general thing that lives across your whole entire website that people opt in for. A lead magnet is specific to the piece of content that it's in. Right? So like I said, if I write a blog post about social media, a lead magnet for that might be 10 hashtags for you to use for your brand. And it only lives on that specific blog post or in that specific video, so that the people who come and read about that topic, I can guess that they're interested in whatever it is that I'm going to offer. So if they just read a post about social media marketing, I can make an educated guess that they're probably also interested in Instagram hashtags, so they will be more likely to sign up, right? Because let's say that your opt-in is 10 ways to, eat healthy for summer, right? Let's say it's 10 ways to eat healthy for summer, but the person who came on your site already eats healthy, right? Or maybe it's not even summer where they're at, right? Maybe it's winter in the part of the world that they're in. They might not sign up for that specific opt-in. But if they come to your site to read a post on, how to juice, and you give them a PDF around, my top 3 juicing recipes, then I know that the person is already directly interested in the PDF because they just read a post about how to do something. Does that make sense? So again, a lead magnet relates specifically to the piece of content that it lives in. An opt-in is a general website-wide situation. Okay. The next thing is driving traffic to your actual funnel pages, soft launching your services. So this is where you're going to start sending people to the landing pages for your products or service to see how they convert. Did you actually write the proper copy? Do you explain the product or service well? Do people actually end up buying? Here's where you do a lot of also like beta testing. This is where you do like your beta group if you're doing an online course where you soft launch your services. Like you're not out here doing ads and posting about it every single day on social media. You're just kind of letting people find, your products and services on their own and then seeing what happens. This is just a test period, right? So once you have people in your funnels, once you started collecting, more email addresses from your lead magnets, once you've developed the funnels for each magnet. So if somebody just downloaded the PDF on my top 5 juicing recipes, and maybe what I'm trying to sell them is, I don't know, a book about juicing and cleansing. I don't know. Right. So then I'm writing an email funnel about 3 emails telling them why they should purchase the book. And I did a whole nother class on funnels, so I'm not even going to dive into that too crazy, but you should be building out the actual copy for your funnels, getting actual people on those lists of the services that you want to launch, driving traffic to those sales pages and funnel pages, and then, just letting people explore your products and services on their own and seeing what happens, seeing what questions you get, seeing, trends. So for example, if 700 people saw your service page, but none of them bought, then you're either attracting the wrong people or the information on your service page isn't clear enough, right? So you kind of have to, be very, very strategic about this and be very anal and like obsessive about your metrics so that you can see what's working and what's not, and that you can make the right decisions. And y'all know I also did a whole video on metrics. So I'm not going to go over that, but during month 2 is when metrics are very, very important. Okay. And then the last thing is visibility. So here is where you are trying to secure guest posting opportunities at a very big blog. So this is where you're trying to get on Huffington Post and Forbes and, PR Daily and, any big blogs or websites. This is where you want to get guest posting opportunities there. This is where you want to boost your social media networking. So this is where you want to start, getting obsessive about posting consistently. Like if you are in the brand awareness website phase and you stressed out about the fact that you haven't posted on Instagram every day, you're doing it wrong. Don't worry about posting on social media every day because you're going to be driving people to something that's not ready yet, right? Like you wouldn't go have a bake sale and your cupcakes are still in the oven at your house, right? You would literally not get in your car, go to a location, set up a whole table and be like, hey, y'all, come buy these cupcakes, come buy these cupcakes. They come and they're like, where are the cupcakes? Like, oh, well, the cupcakes, they're still getting made in my house. I'm going to bring them back though. So, make sure you come back to the table. No, you want to get out there to sell and start attracting people when you are ready. So do not worry about posting every single day on social media and having an immaculate social media marketing plan if you have not done steps 1 and 2, which is get your website and your brand together and build your list and get your services in order. Okay. So if you're one of those people who has been obsessing about, oh my God, I haven't posted on Twitter, you're going to be fine. Focus on doing the first 2 things first, because once you have those 2 things in place, then focusing on social media is a lot easier because you have all of the other things out of the way. Okay. Again, content is, yes, very important. It's very important to build awareness. It's very important to build that relationship. Absolutely. but you have to focus on all of the other things that are going to allow you to build relationships before you start stressing out about the fact that you haven't posted on Instagram every day. Okay? Or the fact that you don't have 30 posts in the queue for Twitter. There are other priorities that you want to focus on. And if you need to just build awareness by just posting on Instagram when you see fit and when you have some time, great, because you don't want to drive people to your website and it's not done yet, or it's not optimized, or you don't have an opt-in, because then you're just going to be wasting that visit, right? Like, people are going to show up to your site, but there's no way for them to sign up for your email list. You don't know if they're ever going to come back again. So you just wasted that opportunity by sending somebody to your site and it wasn't ready. Okay. Next is you want to start pitching yourself to media outlets. So you want to use a service like Help a Reporter Out, which is an acronym called HARO. And HARO, or helpareporterout.com, sends out queries every single day, 3 times a day, about what reporters are looking for. Right? So they might be looking for an expert in your area to comment, to leave a tip for a story, and you want to make sure that you end up in those outlets. I've pitched Harold 1 trillion times, and all you have to do is showcase your value. So 1, why are you credible, which you should have figured out in month 1 or during the brand building phase. 2, why your business is credible, which you should have done again in month 2 in the business building phase, and then provide your tip. So I would say something like, hi, I'm Emily De La Cruz. I am a digital marketing strategist. I've been in business for 7 years. I've helped thousands of women build their brands online and offline. And I've, had 75 clients in these industries. Here are my tips below. Let me know if you need anything. Attaches my media kit. Goodbye. Farewell. Not way too much. Okay. What you do, why you're credible, why your business is credible, and what you have to say about the topic. That is it. That is all. You can also hire a publicist at this point if you feel necessary. I don't invest in a publicist because I think it's very expensive for most people, and it's very expensive for something that's intangible. So if your publicist is $2,000 a month and they pitched you all month and they got no press, you still have to pay them those $2,000 a month. So it's a service that you have to be very particular about. And I have a public relations degree, which is why I can say this. So public relations is a very long-term kind of service. So if you think that you're going to hire a publicist today and work with them for 2 months and then that's it, you don't need a publicist. You have to be ready to make the real life investment over at least 6 months to see real life results when it comes to getting a public relations professional. So the other option is to pitch people yourself directly or to use a service like Haro. And then while you're doing all this, right, so while you're writing, those guest posts, and while you're boosting social media, and when you're getting into all these publications, this is when you want to really focus on sales. Make sure that your, funnels are right. Look at your sales every single day. Are you making sales? Is there a page that's struggling? Is there something that, you noticed in your trends? For example, like 50 people from the Essence magazine post went to your social media class page, but none of them bought. Maybe it's something that you need to tweak. Maybe you need to run a sale. You got to do free shipping. You got to build that scarcity and urgency, right? That we talked about in another class. So during the 3rd month, you don't want to be, killing yourself blogging or, worried about building out lead magnets and stuff like that. All that should have already been done. So now it's just kind of running on autopilot in the background, and you're focusing on getting in front of more people and things like that. Okay. So I know this was a lot. I know this was the real deal. Y'all know I don't like to sugarcoat it, but you guys have been dying for a marketing plan class, or dying to figure out how to build a marketing plan. But I think you need to focus on building your whole entire business and understanding that the marketing plan is just a piece of that, right? So we'll reconnect during the Q&A tonight at 9:30. But here you should have everything that you need to not only understand how to put together a marketing strategy, but how that marketing strategy looks over time. Okay. Tactics and things like that. You can literally go on Google right now and put, brand awareness strategies, and 15 million things will come up. But for me, it was more important for you to understand this cycle, which I don't know where the hell is that right here, this cycle of awareness, engagement, sales, and retention, so that you can be very realistic about where you are in business. Alrighty. So again, I hope that was helpful, and I will see y'all later. Peace.